There we go. Oh, are we live? Okay. I think we're live.
I think so. I'm looking on here to see if we are. All right, you guys. It's just us today.
Yeah. Are we live?
I think
we're
only not showing up for me.
Hey, Brandy. Okay. Woo. Well, we're running a little behind. Actually, I feel that sense of running behind today too. I didn't say that when we were chatting in just a second.
Yeah. I was just saying, I was texting Aurelia saying, I'm running late because I've got this new composter, and I got it a few weeks ago, but I didn't totally set it up because I knew I was going to go out of town and it has worms and I didn't want the worms to die. So I had ordered my worms, and finally they arrived at like 8 p.m. last night. And I still didn't have everything set up because everywhere's out of like potting soil. I couldn't find any potting soil. So I was trying to order some. And, so then this morning I went to get the potting soil. And I had to go to 2 places, and then I was running late, and then I had to lift these 50-pound bags of potting soil into the car, and then I'm sweaty. So it was a whole thing.
Worms in the soil yet, or have you? Are there still?
I literally like backed my vehicle up to the backyard and ran out to try to clean up a little.
I got this same system too. We ordered around the same time, and we got them, I think, at the same time. But Fran was going out of town, so she was put on hold getting her worms. But my worms came in the same thing. It was the day I finished Cupcake Camp, which is like a little thing I do for my nieces. They had all gone home, and like I'd cleaned up, and I went to get soil, and I came home, and the worms were there, and they were just sitting on the counter in the boxes they were in. And I was like, I cannot go to sleep tonight knowing these worms are in this box. I just feel like they're gonna find their way to my bed. It's like, so I like did the whole thing that same day, but I had to get those worms in there.
So worried they're gonna die. I've never worm composted. I have composted for years, probably starting in like 2007 or something. But I've never worm composting. This is like a totally new frontier for me. I knew nothing. I'm starting from scratch pretty much. And I'm so terrified my worms are going to die. So I stuck them in a bucket with a little like potting soil that I had left over. I don't know. I hope they're alive. I poured some water on them.
They're probably fine. My worry is that if they would escape.
Oh, I didn't worry about that, but maybe I could.
Heather, well, Matt's not here today because he is on Air Force duty right now in San Antonio. And he does like a more extended assignment at the end of every summer, and he couldn't join us today. But they compost as well. They don't worm compost, but he bought worms like once upon a time ago. And then he had to go, I think, on Air Force duty, and he didn't have time to put them in the soil. And he told Heather to just leave them in the garage. Like, because Heather was like, this was not my choice. I'm not doing worms. He was just leave them in the garage. And he must have set something up for them in the garage. And then one day she came out, and like there were worms everywhere, and they were all dead.
No. Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
I hope I told that story right, but yeah, so worms are expensive. That's what I also have learned through this. Like, that's the other reason. Like, I don't want them to die, like, and I don't want to buy them again.
If we ever have to go to a barter economy, like there's an apocalypse, we can just trade worms.
I know. We need to start a worm business anyway. Wait, let's see who's on. Hi, Tori, Sarah, Brittany's on. Brittany's our resident worm expert in our community. So Brittany, if you have any advice about getting started with worms, shoot them in the comments.
As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to put my worms in their new home.
Yes. You know what? You should just take the camera. We'll watch.
Maybe I will.
Get started. Let's see. Hi, Dad. Leslie. Hi, Leslie. Jana. Anyway, well, Fran and I thought we would talk about composting today.
We're actually talking about it on purpose.
Yeah.
Because that happens to have been my morning.
Yeah, there's a lot of intersections. Like, we both started this thing, but it's something that Fran's been doing a long time anyway. And Earth Care is something that, you know, she has a lot of years put into that intersection with theology. For me, I'm very new on the journey, and so I've been thinking about it a lot. She shared recently, I feel like you shared on your Instagram, that podcast with what is his name? He started the conference with Rachel Held Evans and Sarah Bessey.
Oh, Eugene Cho. I think
Isn't he the one who did that? Theology of Compost.
So Tiffany Cadenhead sent me a sermon from. Oh no, I'm forgetting.
He did it at that conference. He gave the sermon at this conference, and then they, on the podcast, they replayed it.
Yeah. Okay. The sermon was entitled Theology of Compost. And so I was talking about that one day. I don't remember why.
I don't either. We're not the most prepared.
But I do have a theology of compost, and the sermon resonated with me so much. Because I mean, compost is just so redemptive. There's like dead refuse and waste becomes transmuted magically and miraculously into something that we need, like into soil that is fertile, that is necessary for the life of every organism on the planet, practically. I mean, I guess not ocean organisms, but for sure land organisms. So here we are, like when we compost, we participate in this very primal cycle of death and life and transmutation and resurrection and miracles. So I think it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I think for me, like, this one silver lining of this shit show of a pandemic has been that I can see over time my relationship with time changing. And I have a lot of thoughts on that for another day. But one of the things that have kind of opened up for me with my relationship with time changing has been a more attention to everything around me, being more present, more connected to the earth, and paying better attention to, you know, my plants, and just feeling this connectedness and this what I think is a natural draw to the earth, but that I've just always been so busy and my time been filled up and everything chaotic that it's always like go go go. And so in this space I've been able to like really think about, you know, healing and drawing closer to the earth and what that looks like for me in my little world. And it's drawn me to so composting was my goal for 2020. I told you that at the beginning of the year. Yeah. But it's made it definitely more space in my life to really lean into that and learn about it myself, challenge myself to do it, even though gardening's intimidating to me. Anything to do with plants is not necessarily something I'm naturally good at. So I've really had to make it a discipline to learn about it, research about it, and everything like that. So I'm saying that to say, for people that are like, oh, that's not my thing. It's not my thing either, but it's really become a spiritual practice to tend to that and think about it more. And I don't know if I'm making sense, but
I think you are. And I think it is a spiritual practice. And I'm curious, like, do you feel, or well, what do you feel after a couple of months of, or even just weeks of kind of being intentional about establishing that connection?
Well, I think it's hard. Like, I think it's not like this woo-woo, like look at me, I'm one with the earth. Maybe it is eventually, but it's like it takes real work and real, like literally getting your hands dirty and sweating and figuring out how to, at least starting it. That's where I am, is at the start.
Mhm.
And I was telling Fran yesterday, it is like, if you've ever breastfed, I feel like it's like breastfeeding. That's what I told my husband. I came in the other day and I was like, this is like breastfeeding because it's supposed to be like just natural. And, but it actually takes work to like get going and figure out how to get everything happening. And so I don't know if that makes sense either, but to me it does, because, well, basically I had started my composting system. We both got these things called sub pods, which I think it's going to make it really easy, and there's not supposed to be smell, and you can plant a garden around it. And so I got everything checked off my checklist, and then put the worms in, put my first compost in, was feeling really good. And then I come back and there's like all these things to think about. Like, I see ants. Are ants okay? There's some fungus in there. And is that from the worm blanket or from the food? And I probably shouldn't have covered these ventilation holes, and my bedding was too wet. And there's lots of things to think about.
It's a metaphor for life.
Yeah. And so I ended up having to kind of like give it a week and begin again. Like, I didn't kill my worm. I don't think I killed my worms, but they weren't really happy in that little space. And I was telling Fran, use my mantra, just begin. It's okay. I didn't fail. Just like begin again. So I took all the old bedding out. I added coconut peat. I put a frozen water bottle in there. Supposedly that's supposed to like lure them back. I put a new round of composting in, like, I just tended to it, but it involved beginning again. And it was sort of this moment of feeling like I failed. And it was a moment of, do I just give up or do I try again? Which is how I felt with breastfeeding. I felt like everyone said it was natural. It's just what you do. It's what your body's made to do when you give birth, and it blah, blah, blah. But that was so hard. And there's no judgment to me of people who don't breastfeed, because if I hadn't had like the proper resources, like in our community and one of the best lactation consultants, I think I might have given up just because it was so hard. So anyway, all that to say, like, there's all these things that feel natural, but that doesn't mean they don't take work. And the work itself is a spiritual practice.
Well, as you're saying that it's kind of that the learning curve of it and the making mistakes is like breastfeeding. I'm thinking also that it's like decolonizing. And
Mm-hmm.
it's also like deconstructing. And it's also like, well, like I mentioned yesterday on my live yesterday, that one of my pieces of work that I'm trying to do is to disconnect myself from the construct of whiteness and decenter that out of my life and my brain and my bookshelf and my podcast list and all these things. And that it's hard, and then I make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes feel embarrassing or cause me to feel shame or like I want to give up, and then I have to go begin again.
Mm-hmm.
At it, just stick with it and push through the like mess that I make, which like it's so that's like for me one of the lessons of developing a faith, that I would say right now my faith is very earth-centered. I would say I'm very geared in this season towards trying to find the divine within the natural world and be connected to that. And I would say that that affects everything, but the metaphor of the natural world being messy, and that there are cycles of birth and death, and that there are things that are stinky and kind of yucky, and there are predators and prey in the natural world. And if you walk down the beach, you'll see dead fish that wash up. And so for me, learning that lesson and internalizing of embrace that what we would consider mess, but nature doesn't call it a mess. We call it a mess because we're trying to control everything, and because we're trying to, you know, make everything fit in our boxes. We call it a mess, but nature just calls it the process. And so when I, like, in my journey of decolonization, maybe I say something and then I have to apologize for saying that because it was insensitive, or what, you know, whatever I do that I make a mess that I have to clean up. Maybe it's not the mess, it's just the process.
Yes, yes. And going back to my relationship with time, a lot of it is connected to this idea of chaos or mess um, that like I have to get away from my relationship with time, my rigid relationship with time, and my rigid relationship and need for order. Because when I'm in that space, I can't be intuitive about something like composting or something like breastfeeding. Like when I was, I don't know, this got into composting, and breastfeeding is the new topic, I guess, for this theme. But when I was breastfeeding, like I still remember the day that Brandy, who might still be watching, came over to deliver a meal. And I was like nursing, and I was like, hold on. And I pulled out my phone and I was like typing in the time I nurse so I could figure out the next time to nurse. And she was like, delete that.
Thank you. Brandy said that. Bless you.
And you know what? When I stopped doing that, when I stopped researching and looking online and seeing what I was supposed to do with my own body and my own creation I had made, it became so much better. Immediately, I had to learn to trust myself and trust that connection and step away from order. And in the same way with composting, I'm like, I have to, the more I let go of my timekeeping ways and my need for structure, the easier it is for me to just like go there, go outside, open up the bin, put my hands through in the soil, look for the worms, like figure out what I think is needed for the spot that this sub pot, because we bought these things from Australia and they have a lot of advice for like a totally different climate.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, what do these worms and what does this situation need for a sunny spot in extreme hot climate of Texas in the summer, you know? And I'm having to let go of the order and lean into the mess and realize that that's exactly where I want to be.
Well, and isn't there this element of surrender? Yeah. Of like, we have to just surrender and kind of have faith in nature and have faith in the worms. Yeah. Have faith in the soil and the bacteria.
I love it. I feel like you were talking about decolonizing. I feel like this act of composting feels very much like a part of like decolonizing and moving toward a more indigenous spirituality and way of living on the earth. And because I've always felt just wrong throwing away food. I hate throwing away food. I hate, even if it's a scrap, I hate throwing it in a piece of plastic and then putting that in.
It makes no ecological sense.
Oh, I hate it. And I've always hated it. And I live on a green belt. So a lot of times I would throw things over the fence because animals will eat them or they'll just decompose. Not like I'll throw things that are okay to throw over the fence, and it's a green belt. No one is back there. But Brittany, like when she was worm composting here before she moved, I would like save my compost and give it to her. But I always felt that way. And then I read these words in our book club that we had 3 years ago this fall with Let Out to Sea, right? Do I have it on my shelf? It's like right here somewhere. But anyway, where the Pope literally says, every time you throw away food, you're stealing from the poor. Like you're like taking food from the poor. I can't, I'm going to put that quote maybe on a graphic for this later, but like, I read that and then ever since then, so that was 3 years ago, anytime I throw away food, I feel an aching in my body. Like I hate throwing away food. So it feels like some kind of decolonization to to take this food and put it back in the earth, at least,
At least, yeah. Just while I'm thinking about it, I do want to say I misspoke earlier. The sermon about the theology of composting is from Jeff Chu.
Jeff Chu.
I apologize. I've been, in my effort to decolonize, I've been trying to listen to more Asian theologians also, so I'm getting people confused.
Chu, both Chu.
Cho and Chu.
Cho and Chu. Okay. I don't know the other person that is that somebody related to? Nope. Okay.
Another guy.
Let's see if I had that book right here, but I don't. Anyway.
Beautiful book if you want to pick up. So when I started learning about earth care as it relates to faith, which I think it is inextricably connected, I started when I was still kind of inside of evangelicalism. So the books that I read were more geared towards evangelicalism, and I haven't found great books more for our kind of context. Even though it seems more obvious in our sort of like more progressive context, but I don't have great book recommendations. And I think Laudato Si is probably one of the best that I have right now. So if anybody has great book recommendations that are theologically robust, that offer commentary on earth care as it relates to spirituality and Christianity in particular, please. I think in other wisdom traditions, it's just more obvious. Coming out of evangelicalism, it has become not obvious.
Yeah.
Evangelicalism and has in so many ways stuck itself to whiteness, and whiteness says that the earth doesn't matter, and so does evangelicalism.
Well, we have dominion over it.
So we have dominion, and there's not a concept of earth stewardship or being connected or paying attention to the seasons or the moon or the cycles of birth and death. So I would love to have a better library that makes sense for folks who are more deconstructed, but I just don't have it yet.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll be one of the writers of those books one day. That'd be awesome.
Maybe
a natural thing. See, can you see the comments? Let's see. Do we have any comments to address?
Yeah, it is like tending to our inner growth.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can reduce your household waste by 30% by composting alone. 30% reduction in household waste simply by composting things. And,
oh gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this. Okay, I will look for it after this and put it in here. But through this sub pod that we ordered, they have a newsletter every week, and they share all these cool companies doing things to reduce household waste or whatever. And they shared a company that you can sign on, and you can find people that need compost or are looking to give compost away in your area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I need to find that and post it, and I will. But I even looked, and there were several people in the area that either had it or are giving it away. And so if you want to compost, but you aren't set up to do that, you could connect on that app and find someone who will take your compost. Yeah.
Or your scraps, you mean, right?
Your scraps. Yeah, your scraps, so that they can compost. Cool. So anyway, cool companies like that doing some really
innovative things. Well, we're at 10:27.
Yeah, I think we did our best.
Our conversation on the theology of compost
and
earth care and earth connection.
That's right. It's also, I don't know, it's a cool journey to be on right now. I also just want to acknowledge that it's a privileged journey to be on. I work from home. I was able to afford to buy the worms, to buy the thing. I have the time. So I always want to be clear when I'm talking about composting for me, that I do it realizing that because I have this certain amount of privilege, which is being home, having time, I feel the need that to use that responsibility in this way. So that's more how I'm looking at it, and not assuming that everybody needs to go out and do something a certain way. But you know, a gift of that experience for me is so deeply intertwined with my theology and the way I'm connecting with God right now. And so we wanted to kind of share that.
Yes. And also, I just want to say that there's plenty of zero cost ways to compost too. So it can be, there's lots of ways. I mean, it's just a whole topic of exploration if you go on the Google about it. Can we talk about your earrings for just a moment?
Thank you.
Mention that?
Well, okay. They're from Las Ofrendas. Have you heard of that in Austin?
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a Latina-owned small business in Austin, and man, I've been following them on Instagram, and they just always have these snake earrings, and these have a little bit of pink in them. And
that's cute.
Well, you know,
snakes represent though. Like we need to know. Tell us what snakes represent.
Well, snakes represent divine feminine energy, and I also represent that, obviously. Just kidding. But I also got them because it's been the year of the snake for me. Every time I think about this quarantine, I'm going to think about my interactions with snakes. I don't really like snakes. Let's get real. I don't want to see a snake, even with these empowering earrings on. But yet they keep appearing to me. And in fact, the first time it happened, I was stepping out into the exact spot where I put the sub pod that's I'm composting with. I was about to step into that spot, and there was a snake there. I almost stepped on it, and it wigged me out. And then and then I went on another walk the week later, and I was stepping onto a trail, and I saw another snake. I ran. I didn't go on the trail. And then like a couple weeks later, I was going to step up onto the stair on my patio, and there was another freaking snake. I've never seen a snake in my yard, ever. I've lived in this house for 3 years, okay? And then I had a dream about a snake in my yard, and the next day, I was sitting at a table, and I was writing. I had this revelation, and I was going to write about it. And I looked up, and there's a snake on my patio looking at me.
I'm telling you, these are snake messengers to you. So, just need to learn to interpret.
So then I was like reading this book. It's right here, which we talk about a lot. It's a really great book. The Dance of the Distant Daughter. And I was reading this book while all this was happening, and I read about the snake being the symbol for divine feminine energy in ancient times. And it was a really cool story. But it was so funny because when I got the sub pod, I knew the general area I wanted to put it in, but it's not necessarily a flat area, and I needed it to be as flat as possible. So you can see on Facebook, because I posted like a video, like a time-lapse video, you can see me moving it all around that area to figure out the flattest spot. And where was it? But the exact spot where I initially almost stepped on a snake. I don't know what that means, but there you go.
Something.
I was like, I should probably mark this with some.
Tiffany has suggested a book called Making Peace with the Land, and she says it's been a long time since she's read that book. I haven't read it either, but I'll give it a peek.
Thanks for the suggestions, and thanks for joining us. Let's see, what do we have coming up? Sunday, we have our kid-led service.
And it's going to be so beautiful and adorable, and you do not want to miss it.
It is not a week to skip. I'll say that. I'll say it is a week to be blessed. These kids like just fill us up when they
so hard.
Yeah, literally all kids leading, preaching, doing all the elements. So join us for that. And then on Tuesday we'll have Dr. Courtney Pace on for Coffee with. Look at this. I moved an extra bookshelf into my office, and like it's coming in handy. Courtney did like a lot of her PhD work on Prathia Hall, and she has this book, which is the culmination of that, Freedom, Faith, the Womanist Vision of Prathia Hall. And anyway, Courtney's on the board.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Prathia Hall was an inspiration of Dr. King.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And in fact, she inspired some of his speeches. Really cool stories, like directly.
Yeah.
Like direct quotes from his speeches came from her
She's
idea.
awesome. So don't miss what she has to say. It's going to be great.
And I have an extra copy of this if anyone wants it. I accidentally ordered two. So she'll be here Tuesday. So that's what we've got coming up.
Cool. We'll see y'all Sunday, hopefully.
Yep. We will talk to you later. Bye.